Okay, hold on. We're going to do a little bit of impeachment talk, and then we're moving on to something else in the opening, something that I actually like about Barack Obama. Also, your feelings, are they important? And should you broadcast a private conversation to the world? Finally, should we allow boys into women's locker rooms? Apparently, we have to go over this. All that's coming up right now on I'm Right. Okay, we're going to give you the impeachment news, as we will do every day. There is impeachment news, but once again, allow me to warn you, impeachment is not going to dominate this show. It will never dominate this show. Why? Because this is a useless sideshow. This impeachment hearing is clearly an impeachment for Trump haters and by Trump haters. Nobody else cares. Poll after poll after poll cares. We got word this morning, Nancy Pelosi even has a focus group saying, suburban people don't care about this, like, even at all. And the worst part, this is what really spells doom for the Democrats. Even if Trump did what Democrats are accusing him of doing, poll after poll after poll shows the public isn't even sure if he did anything wrong. So essentially, Donald Trump is on trial for something that you're not sure is even a bad thing. That is not a good situation to be in if you're a Democrat. Nevertheless, we will give you the day's highlights. European Union Ambassador Sondland, he testified about, well, was there a quid pro quo? Here it is.
But I believe I just asked him an open-ended question, Mr. Chairman. What do you want from Ukraine? I keep hearing all these different ideas and theories and this and that. What do you want? And it was a very short, abrupt conversation. He was not in a good mood. And he just said, I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky to do the right thing. Something to that effect.
Uh-oh. Well, wait a minute. That's the whole point. That's why we're here. Wait, no quid pro quo. All right, I guess we can all leave. But no, we didn't leave. I'm pretty sure the impeachment hearings are still going on as we speak. They're just going to go on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And nobody cares. Everybody's tuning out. Networks are already changing the channel because this was a huge dud. Now, Representative Stefanik, if I'm saying that right, Stefanik decided she was going to go down the list and say, okay, well, let's make sure the reasons we're here, let's see, is he guilty of any of this stuff? Here she went.
Mr. Morrison, you were on that call, and there was no mention of withholding aid on the call, correct?
That is correct, Congresswoman.
And there was no quid pro quo, correct?
Correct.
No bribery?
Correct.
No extortion?
Correct.
And Ambassador Volker, I presume you got a readout of the call, is that correct?
Very terse readout, but yes.
In this tertiary readout of the call, Ambassador, from the U.S. participants, was there any reference to withholding aid?
No, there was not.
Any reference to bribery?
No, there was not.
Any reference to quid pro quo?
No, there was not.
Any reference to extortion?
No, there was not.
And I presume you also got feedback from your Ukrainian counterparts as to how the call went. Did they mention the withholding of aid?
No, they did not.
Did they mention any quid pro quo?
No, they did not.
And did they mention any bribery?
No, they did not.
Oof. So, just so we're clear, nobody on the call, on either end of the call, says there was any quid pro quo, there was no bribery, and even the witnesses going forward are like, yeah, that's kind of true. So, what are we doing here? It's an honest question. What exactly are we doing here? We know what we're doing here. This is a gigantic sideshow from a desperate Democrat Party that has spent 3 years making impeachment promises to their base. They now have to deliver on those promises, and there's nothing to deliver on. There's nothing there. But we'll keep giving you the news as it rolls along. Keep in mind, by the way, that this whole thing began off the accusation that Donald Trump wanted Joe Biden investigated, or he wasn't going to give the military aid. Here's what Sondland had to say about that.
Be clear here. Ultimately, the aid was lifted on September 11th. There was never any announcement by the Ukrainians about any investigations they were going to do, correct?
Correct.
The Ukrainians never, to your knowledge, started any of these investigations, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Consequently, these allegations that there was a quid pro quo that had to be enforced before the aid was released, and it never came to fruition, right?
I don't believe so.
There were no investigations, there was no quid pro quo, and the military aid got released. So what, again, why are we even here? What are we doing here? But they did say the primary focus was something else of that call, something that I'm apparently going to have to explain to you because I had to look it up myself. Here they talk about it.
And one of the things that you now remember is the discussion that you had with President Trump on July 26th in that restaurant in Kiev, right?
Yeah, what triggered my memory was someone's reference to ASAP Rocky, which was, I believe, the primary purpose of the phone call.
Okay, I can actually just see the confusion on my father's face out there. ASAP Rocky is some rapper who got in a brawl overseas. He was accused of a crime. Trump went all in for him. We have an impeachment inquiry that started off of ASAP Rocky. That's now in the congressional record. It's a new America, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we're moving off of impeachment. I'm not even doing an entire monologue on it. There's a story out there. White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham, well, she had this to say about Obama's aides and what they did when they were leaving.
When we came into the White House, I'll tell you something. Every office was filled with Obama books, and we had notes left behind that said, "You will fail. You aren't going to make it." Really? Yes. In the press office, there was a big note taped to a door that said, "You will fail," and they'd filled the. So this is something we're used to.
I love it. I know I'm supposed to be mad about this. I love it. You know what? I may hate everything Barack Obama and the far left stands for, but I will tell you one thing. He is at least a man, and his people were the people who understood what politics has become and understood that this is a total war kind of politics. Barack Obama, he taught the Democrats how to play for keeps. They didn't play halfway. Now, granted, Barack Obama, of course, did this little interview where he's like, well, we wished them well on the way out the door. Here's this.
I believe that it is important for all of us, regardless of party and regardless of political preferences, to now come together, work together to deal with the many challenges that we face. And in the meantime, Michelle has had a chance to greet the incoming First Lady, and we had an excellent conversation with her as well. And we want to make sure that they feel welcome as they prepare to make this transition. And most of all, I want to emphasize to you, Ms. President-elect, that we now are going to want to do everything we can to help you succeed, because if you succeed, then the country succeeds.
Well, of course, that was all a big lie. But I like that too. You got to put on a nice face for everybody. Look, again, Republicans can learn from that kind of commitment. But what Republicans do is we complain about it. I can't believe they left us big meanie pie notes. And then what happened? In my opinion, the biggest mistake of the Donald Trump presidency, he comes in, takes over from Barack Obama, and lets all these Barack Obama people stick around. And look where that's gotten us. You let Barack Obama's ambassadors stick around. You let all Barack Obama's little minions at the State Department stick around. You let Barack Obama's people at the FBI stick around. What have you found? What did that get you? Being nice, being the better person. What did that get you? 3 years of investigations. 3 years of this leak to the paper and that leak to the paper and this whistleblower. Start playing politics the way Democrats do. All in. Go in. And leave them nasty notes saying, screw you, on the way out the door. That can make people uncomfortable, but I'm right. Coming up, conservative YouTube host, Sidney Watson. Hang on. Welcome back. Joining me now, friend of mine, conservative YouTube host, Sidney Watson. Sidney, I did not realize they even had the internet in Australia.
And that's funny that you say that, because you know I live in America now. But yeah, no, we have the internet. It's surprising the things that people don't think we have, you know, like running water and houses. We just live in huts, actually.
Well, that sounds absolutely lovely. All right, now did want to get into this. Yesterday was International Men's Day, and as you can imagine, I know this is no big surprise to you. I know you have experience with them. Of course, the feminists had to go after even that day too, and this, tear down every man out there. I guess my question to you is this just an American phenomenon, this, feminazi thing, men are the devil, or is this something that translates basically everywhere?
Well, I mean, I've always said that Australian feminism is much worse than anywhere else, despite the fact that I think Canada might rival us now. It's kind of unclear. But yeah, feminism in Australia is much, much, much more aggressive and much more hardcore towards anything man-related than it is in America. And that's actually something that I've noticed since I've moved. So you guys should count your blessings, because wait until you get the psychotic, crazy feminists that we have talking on TV about murdering men. Because that literally happened like 2 weeks ago.
What, murdering them?
Yeah, I'm not even making this up. And it's really weird because these people have these platforms and they get put on our national broadcaster, so the taxpayer-funded national broadcaster. They get put on lots of other like talk shows and things. We have entire panels of women on other just, like regular morning breakfast shows and things. And it's like, no men allowed. You're not allowed into the cubby house. Stay away. It's really sad, actually.
Where did this come from? Where did this movement come from? Is this bad parenting? Is this the education system? And clearly this thing is international, if it's even in the land down under. So where is it? You can't just point to, it's America's crappy public education system. How did this happen? Where did it start?
That's a good question. I think that most of these kind of ideas are born out of academia, which I think is pretty clear for most things. I think when you trace the way that feminism has evolved, it's definitely been pushed forward, particularly by, quite big names that are now part of the feminist movement. And I think that's where a lot of what I would call the destruction of society is coming from, because every single SJW or social justice warrior idea is coming out of academia and the feminist movement. So it's not just that they're attacking men, they're actually going for the family unit. They're the ones who brought in this distinction between sex and gender, which I'm sure you have a lot of opinions on. They're the ones who are pushing the transgender movement. They're just, I don't know, it's like they get their little creepy fingers into everything and then it just spreads. They're like dirty. They get the dirt everywhere. I can't stand it.
Clearly, you can. Yes, and as you can imagine, I have one or two strong opinions about that as well. And I'm glad you brought that part up, because I find this to be really interesting. I enjoy it when my enemy divides amongst himself and they start picking at each other. Mm-hmm. How do you see the nasty feminist movement merging and joining with the transgender movement? I mean, we have men who are now cutting off their Richards and winning at women's sports. I mean, that's as anti-woman as anti-woman gets. Nevertheless, I don't hear much from the feminists about it. How does this fight end? Because clearly transgenders at this point in time are on top of the victim ladder.
Right. No, you're exactly right. It's actually really weird that you bring this up, because there is a faction of the feminist movement and they're called TERFs. And they're trans reactionary something feminists. Basically, they don't like the trans movement, and they don't believe that transgender women, i.e. biological men, should be characterized as women. We shouldn't describe them as women, basically, is their standpoint. It's actually really interesting. I totally recommend deep diving into it, because I think a lot of the conservative values, or at least some right-wing values, do line up with these feminists, although obviously in then other areas they're completely insane. But it's interesting that you bring this up, because what I'm noticing as a woman is that the things that feminists ordinarily would fight for, i.e. the safety of women, making sure that women have equal rights, all that sort of stuff, is actually being trampled on and destroyed by allowing now a bunch of men to come into the space. Because, and I feel bad, I really do, I feel bad for this whole thing, because I'm sure there's a portion of transgender people who just want to be left the hell alone, and I don't blame them. I would want to be left alone as well. But feminists, it's just interesting how now they have these conflicting value systems, and it's like, who's going to win out? And I don't think it's going to be women, to be perfectly honest with you. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see how this ends. I have a hard time seeing how this comes to any kind of a peaceful end. But I'll tell you something. I just haven't seen any one of these movements that gets a head of steam like this that finally turns around and it becomes self-aware. You know, I don't think we can bank on the movement saying, you know, we've actually gone too far. That's not the way it works. They just keep taking and taking and taking until somebody has the balls to stand up and say, screw you, you're not taking anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't think that's going to happen in this case because, I mean, like you said before, you have men who are now going into, or biological men who are now going into women's sports. I even watched this really sad video this morning where at a high school, a young girl was talking about the fact that she wants to use the change rooms and the bathroom without thinking that there might be biological men in there, because we've come to this point where you can quite literally just say, I am, or I feel like I'm a woman, and then get all these extra perks. In fact, the new video that I'm working on that I'll release next week is about transgender prisoners and how we are now quite literally moving biological men into women's facilities in order to appease the fact that they identify as a woman. And look, personally, I don't know what to do in that instance because I don't even want to touch that. Let's not go into that. But like, how are you putting so many women at risk in these other environments in the name of women? It makes no sense. Make it make sense.
It makes no sense, and you're right. And we've already seen really instance after instance after instance where, you know, they're allowing these people who were born men, I don't even know how to refer to anybody anymore, that are assaulting women in bathrooms. They are assaulting women in locker rooms, and nobody wants to report on it. It's just like how the press handles any time an illegal immigrant commits a crime. I mean, they'll see a horrific crime,
Right.
and they're like, oh, we better lead the news with that. Oh, he's an illegal immigrant? Never mind. Let's just bury that one under the rug somewhere.
Right. That's exactly what's happening in these cases, too. I mean, you have quite literally biological men who are assaulting women in female facilities and female prisons who, you know, and look, the left will come back and they'll say, well, for every one of these people who's being assaulted in prison by a biological male, there's, you know, these biological men who identify as women are being attacked in the male prisons. Be that as it may, that's not a reason to put women in jeopardy. And I'm not even a feminist when I'm saying this, which is absolutely insane. I've never advocated for the insanity that is feminism or third wave feminism. But I just look at this and I think, what is happening here? How have we gotten to this point where we're actually selling out the rights of one group in order to appease the rights or to give more rights to another? I don't get it. I don't understand any of this.
Why aren't you a feminist, Sidney? Don't you like women?
Oh no, I love women. They smell good and their hair is nice. Like I'm all about it, but they're just, you know, I just don't have time. I don't cry myself asleep enough to want to be a feminist.
Conservative YouTube host, make sure you tune into that tranny prisoner special she's apparently going to be putting out next week. Sidney Watson. Sidney, I'm glad you got to talk to me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Coming right up, you know what? We're going to show you that video she was talking about. Hang on. Alexi McGammond. She is apparently a reporter who was having a private, off-the-record conversation with former NBA great Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley obviously is quite an outspoken individual, and apparently Barkley decided to joke with her a little bit, Alexi McGammond, I should say, said, just FYI, Charles Barkley told me tonight, quote, I don't hit women, but if I did, I would hit you, end quote. And then when I objected to that, he told me I, quote, couldn't take a joke, end quote. Okay, there are a couple things I need to unpack for you here, ladies and gentlemen, and some of these things may be difficult for you to hear. I don't care. Buck up, Buttercup. If this is hard for you to hear, then I'm telling you things that your father should have told you. One, whether you're a reporter or whether you're not a reporter, if something is off the record or something is not declared to be public, keep it to yourself. I have no idea when this happened or how this happened in this day and age where people feel like any kind of text message, email, private conversation that they don't like must immediately be broadcasted to the world. You actually don't need the attention of everybody in your social media circle every single time something bad happens to your feels. I know that can be difficult to understand, but you can actually just take things in and let it go. You don't have to do the everybody look at me, I'm so offended thing all the time. I don't know what that is, but I find it to be repulsive. Who knows, maybe I'm the weird one, because sometimes I feel like I'm one of about 3 people on the planet who can keep things to myself. That's number one. Two, this is advice to ladies. This is advice to the young people, men and women out there. Pay attention to me. I understand this is offensive. Again, tough. This is not your mommy's show. This is my show. You had better learn how to toughen up and compartmentalize if you want to exist in this world. If you want to stay at home all day long and just do your thing and eat bonbons and watch The View and maybe do a little dusting, then you can be a sensitive little snowflake. And I can't believe he joked at me. And oh my gosh. If you want to exist out there, get tougher. If somebody comes at you, go right back at them. Or even better, tell me if this is too radical. Just let it go. You see here, this is the problem. And this applies to men and women. We have a generation of parents. I'm not criticizing the kids. People were not created, just out of nowhere. We have a generation of parents who have told their children, your feelings matter. I mean, you ready? Your feelings don't matter at all. None. Like, not even that much. Nobody gives a crap how you feel. This world doesn't care how you feel. You had better learn how to deal with the world you live in. I know that's hard to hear and that's hard to take in, but you'll be a lot happier if you get a thicker skin out there. I find it to be a little bit embarrassing every time somebody tells me, he made me feel bad. Gosh, I don't even know what's happening out there. And you know what? While we're on the parenting thing, you should be placing challenges in front of your children instead of removing them from in front of your children. You want your child to never lose a basketball game and win state every year. And I'm so proud of Billy. I want my kid to get cut because he didn't work hard enough and come home crying. Does that mean I like to see my son cry? No, it's terrible. I want him to know about the value of hard work. I want him to know about overcoming failure. That is raising a person who's going to be an adult one day. So, when your when your son's little league coach is a little hard on him and makes him do a couple extra push-ups, and he comes home and says, Mommy, you're not going to believe what the coach made me do today. Your response to that is, oh, I like this guy. You know what? Go ahead and give me 10 more push-ups just for follow-up on it. What your response should not be is what I see far too often out there. I'm going to call the coach. You know what? Even better. I'm going to get on Facebook and post about it, and then all the neighborhood moms can pile on him too and talk about what a big meanie he is. Stop trying to coddle your kids and put them in a little bubble. Start teaching them how to overcome obstacles. Otherwise, your child grows up to be Alexi McGammon, who feels the need to go on Twitter and broadcast the fact that Charles Barkley made a joke. Good grief. Charles, he's been doing this for a long time. Apparently, he isn't going to stop. Here's what he had to say.
I've been saying whatever the hell I want for 30 years, and I'm doing great.
Keep doing what you do, Charles. And by the way, Charles and I don't agree on anything politically, but I love the fact that people are offensive now. And I know that sounds ridiculous. How could you want someone to be offensive? If you're somebody who gets offended, then you deserve to be offended. That was really smart. I'm going to repeat that again. If you're somebody who gets offended, then you deserve to be offended. Speaking of offended, well, apparently some town in New Hampshire is going to have a little bit less of a Christmas celebration this year. Why? Because somebody complained. Here's the councilman.
And then there was another private citizen that came forward and said that he had always had a problem with the Christmas tree, so as he called it.
So they're dialing down the Christmas celebration because one person had a problem with the Christmas trees. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this connects directly with the Charles Barkley story. Who takes the time to lodge a complaint about Christmas trees? That's one. Two, how do you bow to that person? Is there no corporation or town council? Is there no entity in the world anymore who has the guts and brains to simply look at people who complain and be like, okay, leave, loser. No, I'm not going to do what you asked me to do. No, I actually don't value your opinion. And just because you're an angry, vocal, minority, the majority loves it. So if the majority of people love Christmas and a nasty little minority group hates Christmas, screw the minority group. Celebrate Christmas. Good grief. All right. Coming up to talk about this and other things and women in the workplace. And, well, you'll see. She's just awesome. the great Carol Roth, host of the Roth Effect podcast. Coming up, hang on. Welcome back to I'm Right, and we have one of my favorite people in the world on right now. Her name is Carol Roth, host of the Roth Effect podcast and creator of the Future File Legacy System. Highly recommend you check that out. By the way, I may or may not be an owner of it myself. Carol, first of all, let us go into what happened with this reporter, this Lexi McGammond and Charles Barkley. What happened here?
Oh man, it's another instance of somebody who cannot take a joke, which is just the absolute worst. I guess she was at a private event with him and he was talking about different candidates he liked. And he said he liked one candidate and then he said he liked another candidate. And she said, well, didn't you just say that you liked this first candidate? And he said, oh, well, it's a good thing that you're a woman. I don't hit women, but if I did, I would hit you. It's a joke. Obviously, he set up the whole thing and said, I don't hit women. He's joking around in front of a bunch of people. And now she's upset. Misogyny, patriarchy. She's been threatened. And this is why us as women cannot have nice things, Jesse Kelly.
Well, I'm glad you brought that part of it up because my biggest problem with this was actually twofold. One, I don't know when this became a thing. Maybe I'm one of like two people in the world who actually can keep a secret and keep things private. But she specifically says during this whole thing it was off the record, and then she goes and blabs to everybody in the world about what he did. Is there no privacy anymore in this world? That's number one. Number two, you said something I thought was really, really intelligent. Normally, I only think my stuff is intelligent, about women and not becoming too emotional. Now, people don't know this, a lot of people, about Carol Roth. She's also a former investment banker. This is a successful human being. Can you give maybe women some advice along with your answer to my first problem?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with the second problem is that women, if you want to be treated equally to men, then you're going to have to learn how men act around each other. I'm very lucky. I've been around wonderful men my whole life, and they bust each other's chops. And this is an instance of somebody who's busting your chops. It's done in good fun. It's actually incredibly inclusive because he was comfortable enough with you to play around with you. And so if you don't like it, give it back to him. Say, oh, well, that's good because I was going to take this high heel and I was going to stick it up your behind. That's the appropriate response. Whining about it on Twitter as a victim is not the appropriate response, Jesse. So that is my advice to women. Otherwise, you say, oh, why will the men not let us in the club? Because they joke around like this and you get into the club and you say, oh, now he threatened me, and nobody likes that. So please just calm down, take a little deep breath, and you don't have to like it. You don't have to think it's funny, but just settle down for a second.
Yes, agreed 100%. And I will tell people, look, everybody knows this about me. It's whether you're a man or a woman. If I'm not giving you some degree of crap, it's either because I don't know you or don't like you. That is how men bond with each other. And I realize that can be difficult for women to understand because that's not necessarily how most women bond with each other. But when I walk in my room or I walk in my house and my buddy's coming over and he walks in and I say, hey, butthead, and everybody looks at me horrified, that's a term of endearment. And believe me, that's being kind. That's how men speak to each other. And I just think it would be helpful if instead of teaching not just women, men are just as bad these days about being sensitive little butterflies. That's how you have to relate in the real world. Why is everybody such a weakling now?
It's been the wussification of America. It's something that I wrote back in 2015. And I said it's the reason why Trump was going to win. And that's why he won, because people in this country, at least the majority of them, were sick of being perceived as wussies or something that rhymes with that starts with a P on the world stage. And, people want to be strong and have that strength and be able to have fun and be able to offend other people sometimes and have it be okay. I mean, I wrote today that the Bill of Rights is not the Bill of Emotions, that there is no protection for you to not be offended. And, maybe just go have some carbs if you're so uptight. Maybe go get some action, because obviously People are just not having a lot of fun. I enjoy my life. I'm having fun. I can take a joke. If you're not, I'm super concerned about you, and you need to take some action. You should probably get off of Twitter.
Is this a parenting thing, Carol? I've argued, and now maybe I go back to this too much because I really focus on that this is a parenting thing. I mean, anybody who met my father would say that's probably not the kindest human being in the world. He's a little bit of a hard man, grew up in construction, blue collar. I love my dad. My dad's still the best person in the world to go to for advice, but I couldn't comprehend going to my father with things like, he was really mean to me. What should I do, Dad? Like, I would be laughed out of the house. And I think everybody needs a father or a mother or both parents like that to help them grow up.
I think that's an excellent point, Jesse. I think that parents used to be parents and now they want to be friends and they want to be cool. And, in my parents' generation, kids were to be seen and not heard, as I was told many times. My dad used me in ruses and jokes with his friends, and, it bonded me with him. And, he taught me to be able to take a joke. And, he always said, the sticks and stones may break your bones, but words are never going to hurt you. And he also taught me how to fight back. So if somebody actually does punch you or whatnot, then you know what to do. And these are just general life skills. And I think that parents have gotten way too soft. The kids have it way too good these days, and that they need to toughen up their skin a little bit.
Well, look how far you've come now. Now you get to be on TV with me. I mean, that's really how you know you've made it. All right, moving on really quickly. Elizabeth Warren, her wealth tax, and this is going to be mainstream in the Democrat Party tomorrow. I mean, this is, people can act like Warren's the outlier. This is the future. That's the way they're going. Is a wealth tax a good idea, Carol? Will it solve all of our problems?
No, I mean, first of all, it's completely immoral and I would argue unconstitutional. That money has been earned by somebody and you don't get a third party who gets an opportunity to weigh in on how the best way to spend it is or to give it to somebody else, which is crazy. But the fact of the matter is that we don't have enough money for all of the fantasies that Elizabeth Warren is promising. And if you look around the world at all the countries that have tried the wealth tax before, it has failed miserably. And that's because people who have money want to protect that money, and it's mobile, and there are plenty of places around the world that will allow you to have that money and use it in the way that you see fit, since you're the one that earned it. Fundamentally un-American. It's a horrible, horrible proposal, and I'm actually offended that there are people out there who say, yeah, we're entitled to put my hand into somebody else's bank account and spend it the way that we want to.
Well, there are a lot of dumb people out there, Carol, but Carol Roth, the great Carol Roth, best-selling author, host of the Roth Effect podcast, and creator of the Future File Legacy System. Carol, I am so glad you got to talk to me today.
I am so glad that you are so glad that I got to make you glad, Jesse, because at the end of the day, it's all about you.
See, Carol gets it. All right, coming up next. Should men be allowed in women's locker rooms? Apparently, we have to have this debate. Hang on. Well, look, this whole transsexual LGBT movement thing is not going away, and it's not going away anytime soon. And I mean, you remember the conversation we had earlier in the show with Sidney Watson about it. This is just something that's gaining steam, and that even some portions of the feminist movement are now like, oh, wait, what? What is happening? Look at this video. Look at the difference between the former boy who is now declaring to be a girl, the glee with which this person talks about going into a woman's locker room, as any high school student would, and then the woman, the girl, who now has to change in front of somebody who's not a girl. Here.
I'm really excited if they vote for it. A bit nervous, though, as always. Just you never know. But it's definitely a first step forward in many more steps. It's a great policy. Unfortunately, it's not everything we want, such as talking about even the small things like changing the name on your student ID. which you're required to wear at all times. So I'm really hoping that the district makes the right decision here and votes it.
I feel uncomfortable that my privacy is being invaded. As I am a swimmer, I do change multiple times naked in front of the other students in the locker room. And I understand that the board has an obligation to all students, but I was hoping that they would go about this in a different way that would also accommodate students such as myself.
That's tough to watch, isn't it? Keep in mind, people, remember that girl's tears. Yes, we like to do old school chauvinism on the show, but I mean, don't women deserve better than that? Don't we deserve to protect and treasure women a little bit more than that? And when women play sports, which is a wonderful thing, teaches men and women, hard work, teamwork, all the great things that sports does, shouldn't that be a sanctuary for women? Now that poor young lady has to go change in front of a dude? People, that's wrong. And once again, let me tell you, don't you let anybody shame you into stopping telling the truth. That is wrong. It's not fair to those women, and women deserve better. Across the world and here in the United States of America, we should do a lot more to protect women than we're currently doing. All right, we'll be back tomorrow to have some more fun. I'll see you then.